I've been dying to talk about Diablo 4, but maybe not in the way that the game is currently being discussed. The goal isn't to be contrarian or to even place rose-colored glasses on my face. I'm just legitimately curious. What does the base game feel like at this point in the post-content release cycle? Thankfully, Blizzard and Xbox teamed up in promotion of the Season of Blood, their latest installment of Diablo 4. And together, they granted Xbox players one weekend to play 10 hours of their action RPG for free. Is this teasing a possible 2024 Game Pass release for Diablo 4? I don't know, but with the post-game monetization, it seems like the type of game that would do really well on the service. Regardless, I took this as my chance to finally dive into Diablo 4 with as low of stakes as possible. From Thursday night to Sunday night, I enjoyed a bite-sized look into the single-player vanilla base game content. That's assuming I'm experiencing a build that's somewhat close to what those of you who have played it on day one might have experienced. Meaning I ignored all of the seasonal content and opted to just start the game as I would have upon its initial release. I was curious if all of the conversation around Diablo's post-game content would affect the core of the gameplay loop for a newcomer like me. I was also eager to see if the title would hold my attention for the full 10-hour trial period experience. I personally am not against DLC. To me, DLC means story content that I can access as long as it's been released and I've purchased it. I think of Bethesda's DLC for Fallout or for The Elder Scrolls. I don't think of stuff like Horse Armor as DLC. That's what I see as a microtransaction. I just try to stay as far away from anything that feels like a chore or a burden, some kind of raw deal or a tight deadline that I'll be super exhausted in overcoming in order to get my full value. I respect the grind and the hustle, but gaming for me is all about the feeling I get when I play and I have a unique experience on my own schedule. It's not so much about the competitive aspect of being the strongest or the most powerful dungeon diver on the internet. The truth is, there are so many great single-player games to play this year. Just on my radar alone are titles like Baldur's Gate 3, Dead Space Remake, and Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, just to name a few. But also, that's not even including the titles that I'm currently diving into, like Vampire Survivors, Lies of P, and even Starfield. Hopping into Diablo 4 for free is exactly what I needed to get my own personal hands-on experience with this controversially always online RPG. I would love to see more publishers offering a similar opportunity for players to sit down with the game and try it out for a meaningful amount of time, especially if it's as controversial as Diablo 4. There's just no replacement for experiencing a game firsthand, and these 10 hours are a really solid chunk of time. Let's talk about general first impressions of Diablo 4. As we highlight the aspects of the RPG that resonated the most, I'll run through the writing, narrative design, world building of Sanctuary, the voice performances, and character design. It was a very busy 10 hours. Let's start with the writing and narrative design. As a Diablo fan, I already had watched several cinematics before even playing the game. For some titles, a great cinematic can actually lead to an underwhelming or even disappointing gameplay reveal. I generally try to avoid marketing content if I already know I'm going to be playing the game myself. If I'm hesitant on an aspect of that game, I'll dive more into the marketing side of the publishers, releasing these types of cinematics to check out. Or I'll look at reviews or even footage of the gameplay. With Diablo 4, there is a synergy between the cinematic storytelling and how that story interacts throughout the game world. Blizzard's cinematic team did a great job of laying the foundation for those opening cinematics, while still capturing the overall tone of Sanctuary. I am super intrigued to see how the Lilith arc plays out, And for a game as addicting as Diablo tends to be, it's impressive that the story can still hold its own amidst all of the action. Before even firing up Diablo 4, I was already familiar with the character of Lilith, and as a box art character model, Lilith's presence in the game creates this overwhelming sense of dread, but also intrigue. This dichotomy of powerful demons with an ability to convince humans to do their bidding is really helpful in drawing the player deeper into a story that doesn't quite seem as black and white as I would have imagined. I really wish that big box PC games are as available as they used to be, or are even as popular as they used to be, because there was this practical way of delivering game files through a CD-ROM, but it was also a way to collect really cool art books and look at the back and read the instruction manual. There was so much content beyond just the game. And I think Lilith would have made a really cool box art to see in a store, and I would have loved to own something like that. It reminds me of the classic StarCraft box art of the Queen of Blades, Sarah Kerrigan. Just look how cool it is to have this type of box, and this is a smaller box, but yeah, it feels like you're purchasing something. Even this Diablo 1 box, which I've never played Diablo, but I got this just because I wanted to look into the game, and this had so much content, including an art book, which I opened, I think, on maybe the first video of this channel. So Diablo 4's gameplay and in-world storytelling is compelling, and the more that I focus on the main quest line, the more that the base game drew me into the drama unfolding before my eyes. Lilith, being the daughter of hatred and the mother of sanctuary, is a powerful way to set up a villain arc. Amid an internal conflict, a war between angels and demons, sanctuary is a realm where humans are subject to the whims of celestial and demonic beings. Despite that very grim outlook, I feel weird even calling Lilith a villain, because maybe she's not. That's what makes her such an interesting character. I can sense layers. She presents this idea that the angels are angry and have no interest in sparing the humans of Sanctuary. She may be gaslighting us, but I've barely met the mother of hatred, and I'm already trying to create a scenario in my mind where maybe she's not as evil as she presents herself to be. I say that, and it's very clear she is absolutely a threat to mankind. It's that bargaining and reasoning that makes Lilith so compellingly dangerous. With these 10 hours, I can tell that I'm just barely scratching the surface. As I was dungeon diving deeper into Lilith's sanctuary or traveling between the frosted landscapes to key waypoints, Diablo 4 seemed to generate emerging dynamic content. It's a game design trick that absolutely works on my brain. It could be a villager trapped underneath a cart, or a mini boss harvesting power to become even more powerful. Either way, my desire to complete a task while on the way to complete another task lured me into every sidetracked mini event popping up along my path to the main quest. It's a balancing act, because ultimately, it is most intriguing to journey forward in hopes that the world of Sanctuary will open up and introduce new biomes or new creatures, maybe new loot drops. Another game that comes to mind is Grim Dawn or even Titan Quest, because classic computer-based isometric RPGs have this certain cozy quality where a simple turning of an environment can unlock an entirely new emotion within the game. With the opening 10 hours of Diablo 4 feeling very much like a barren, Skyrim-y ice tundra, I couldn't help but wonder what Sanctuary might reveal as I keep venturing forth. Will I find forests, desert dunes, or swamps like in Diablo 3, or will it all relatively stay the same Nordic-looking environment? Once I do finally get the chance to beat the main campaign, I'll go back and listen to the developer interviews to get a better understanding of how they approach the game design of handcrafted dungeons versus the procedurally generated content. Was the desire to create more opportunities for players like me to level my character and progress through the skill tree? Or was the goal to elongate the main quest line by distracting me along the way? I missed out on Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, but it's my understanding that the PC heritage of the franchise is rooted in RNG, random number generation, and loot drops. and procedurally generated dungeon environments. So in Jason Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, they go into the evolution of Diablo 2's RNG and loot drops, and how that legacy challenged Diablo 3's evolutionary sense of progress and challenge. Still to this day, with my ear to the ground and eyes on Asmongold's channel, I sense that Blizzard is still undergoing this tremendous pressure to unlock that secret formula for Diablo 4. Without the main quest story beats to liven up the experience of discovery, the open world exploration of Sanctuary can lend itself to a grim, dark, sensory overload. Or maybe it's even conversely a grim, dark lack of visual variation. I'd find myself often feeling like, man, what did I just sign myself up for? With another horde of enemies trapping me in yet another similar looking procedurally generated dungeon, I can see how this game could be more geared towards a multiplayer co-op social experience. But at the same time, it's a perfect game for mindlessly slaying monsters and collecting loot. Fortunately, the main quest does include many different companions, bringing back that kind of exciting high-stakes storytelling that I loved in Diablo 3. In modern AAA game design, developers seem to be tasked by publishers to try and satisfy a great mainline story quest with endlessly procedurally generated side content. This can sort of place a game at odds with itself, because as a player, I feel like it's partially my responsibility to craft a well-paced, fun, page-turning experience while also enjoying unexpected moments on the side. Look at a game like Halo Infinite or even Sea of Thieves or Starfield. These games end up on Game Pass seemingly to target a decade's worth of content and your attention, while still selling more add-ons, microtransactions, DLC packs, and battle passes along the way. If you're a fan of loot-driven RPGs like Diablo, then you're fully aware of this. I like that I have a choice to dive even deeper into the onlininess of Diablo 4, but just because there is a choice for more content doesn't mean that the experience itself of playing the game fuels a desire to do so. To experience everything a modern open world RPG has to offer is not a time commitment that I take lightly. For me, my first playthrough should feel like a fun roller coaster with a lot of action and a story that unfolds with lots of twists and turns. And as a casual Diablo player, the loot grind has yet to sink its teeth into me. And so I'll return to the game as much as I feel like I want to see the story unfold again with a new character. Whenever an RPG is designed to monopolize my attention via dynamic and generative content, I find myself being more protective of my time. Imagine a trip to Disneyland where mini events start popping up with timers or slightly different moments all happening on your way to the Haunted Mansion. It comes down to personal taste, but how do you decide what's more important? The new, special, slightly distracting opportunity of a rare and unique experience, or that comfort food nostalgia of the thing you've always loved due to its tried and true nature? For me personally, I've always preferred handcrafted dungeons and storylines with beautiful set pieces and emotional voice performances, but that doesn't mean I hate procedurally generated content. Games like Skyrim seem to have striked a pretty solid balance for that handcrafted and procedurally generated formula. However, the presence of endless content does create a situation where I'm more protective of my time investment. All that to say, there is a snappiness to the way the world of Sanctuary unfolds, and that propels the discovery of side content. But I did find myself wanting to return to the main quest to uncover more of the story. Diablo 4 is breezy so far. I haven't felt totally trapped in the overwhelming grind, but I can see how multiple seasons of trying to hold my attention might not be the type of experience that I want from an RPG. The world building of Diablo 4 is strong. If there's any kind of disconnect between a game's hi-fi motion capture cinematics versus the actual gameplay reveal, then that can lead to a player feeling duped or even betrayed. I didn't feel duped in the world of Diablo 4, but again, with only 10 hours, I assume there's much more to see and experience. The true test of a game's art style and graphic fidelity melding into an immersive experience is whether or not Mo gets hooked in by the game's visual presentation as she watches me play it. Modern RPGs that have caught Mo's eye so far has been Cyberpunk, Starfield, The Outer Worlds, and now Diablo IV. Occasionally, this can even lead to us passing the controller back and forth in experience of witnessing the story unfold together. Discovering villages and characters, I felt incredibly invested. A large part of the world building of a game like Diablo IV is the voice acting. With a top-down RPG, the voice acting is crucial.
We must be ever vigilant against sin, brother.
Yes, Reverend Mother.
Let the light of Inarius burn away wickedness. Let not temptation lead you from his holy radiance. Let righteousness sear away corruption and sin. Cast out thy darkness, for only light must remain.
Cast out thine darkness, for only light must remain.
Is this the one from the west?
Yes, Reverend Mother. Did Lorath not accompany you?
He sent me on without him.
Putting faith in that old man was a mistake. What could possibly be of greater import?
Lilith.
Great performers can add an intimacy to the otherwise distant feeling camera perspective. A great voice performance can also influence the way a game is presented. Hearing a confident voice oozing charisma can draw players even deeper into the story. There's something about the voice acting in the Diablo series that feels really special. It's almost as if the presence of these really intimate voices warm up the snowy, gloom-infested landscape of Sanctuary. The world feels vast and lonely in the opening 10 hours, which is why I was eager to see more biomes uncovered. And it wasn't until I hopped back into the main quest, even began to tap into the more elaborately lit emerald green dungeons with a nice sense of verticality design. From what I can tell, there's no camera angle control. It's not too bothersome, but since I am used to Grim Dawn and Divinity Original Sin, did take just a little bit of readjusting. Knowing Diablo, I imagine that the left thumbstick will end up getting mapped to a dodge or a roll or some kind of combat action. The truth is, game development requires trade-offs, and Diablo is simply not designed to grant players camera control. And that's okay. The beauty of the game is in its perspective and attention to detail. I've also yet to find a photo mode in Diablo IV, which could definitely lend to that cinematic experience that I think Diablo IV is often very capable of delivering to players. Or even a UI-less version for capturing footage could be really nice. The character design is where Diablo IV seems to really shine. At first, the character creator took a second to untangle in my brain. Every character had this really sinister kind of dreary look, but then I stumbled upon the sorceress and felt an immediate connection to her kind face. Because I came into the Diablo series with Diablo 3, I've come to know Diablo as a comforting series. Yes, it's dark, but its human characters are also noble, fallible, and courageous. Too much evil can feel a bit too one note, and the player character VO is just so expertly delivered. I really wanted to land on a character that had layers. Of course, I want her to be fierce, powerful, and a proper sorceress, but I also want to believe that she's capable of making the right decisions for humanity. I'm sure when I create more characters down the road, I will appreciate the ability to make necromancers who convey a bit more of a morally gray approach to problem solving. Ultimately, I'm a complete edition type of RPG player. Sometimes I'm there for an RPG on day one and I hop in right away. Starfield is a perfect example, but more often than not, my preference is to grab a physical copy of a game with all of the content baked in. I guess that's how I deal with my fear of missing out. I'm afraid that somehow I won't have access to all the story content, and so I'd rather just wait for it all to be patched, polished, and ready for me to uncover. Not to mention the nightmare that is owning a base game physically, but owning its DLC digitally. That type of hybrid has proved difficult with games like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, where you have to sync to the cloud. Sometimes the DLC doesn't sync, sometimes it does. Because of this, I was nervous that Diablo 4's base game cosmetic experience would intentionally feel incomplete to entice players into Blizzard's in-game store. But I found the fabrics and the textures on the loot and armor to be really satisfying. The art is incredibly high quality, and the color theory utilized in designing the loot and how it looks on the player character is really impressive. I nerd out about in-game fashion. CD Projekt Red tends to be one of my favorite developers when it comes to dressing up a character. Diablo 4 does not disappoint in this department. When I say color theory, I am looking at the ability for an outfit to match hues, whether that be the little gems on a headdress, down to the pigment of a skirt or a tunic. The more that the color theory is dialed in, the more immersive that entire world feels. But I am very curious to see how I feel as I unlock more loot. Undoubtedly, the art team at Blizzard is incredibly talented. I am really eager to see how the loot system feels over time. Have I seen all there is to see, or will I continue to be impressed with the stylistic visuals of armor and clothing and weapons? As I was playing Diablo 4, I kept thinking to myself, man, I would kill to see some of my favorite IPs in this art style and this engine. Imagine an Elder Scrolls top-down RPG spin-off in this style, or even a Lord of the Rings-based ARPG with this level of attention to detail. Granted, offline single-player mode only. Many of the dungeons conjure scenes of fellowship in the mines of Moria, or, as I've said before, the snowy tundras of Skyrim or even The Witcher. Diablo 4's team straddles the line of realism, power fantasy, and playfulness in Diablo 4. When you combine the voice acting with the incredible character creator, you get this really sturdy foundation for a main questline. Sometimes a voice protagonist in an RPG just doesn't work, and other times it feels absolutely necessary. Diablo 4's voice protagonist is really satisfying. The question now is, should I keep playing Diablo 4 in 2023? I am certainly interested in finishing the mainline quest, and I was really surprised to see that despite all of the criticism in the post-game content, the actual base game is still really fun. I'm not sure that I'm an ideal player for what this game's monetization goals are, but as far as it is worth a purchase for seeing the main quest line through and checking out some of the side quests, it's certainly seeming worth the experience. The first 10 hours felt great on Xbox, and if you're thinking about playing inside of that ecosystem, you might find that it works for you. That's all the time we have for today. This conversation has been really fun, and it turned out to be a meatier discussion than I imagined. It really has me thinking that Diablo 4 might draw me in for a full playthrough very soon. But please let me know what your thoughts are on the base game. Did you enjoy it? Are you still waiting to try it out? Is it what you expected? Thank you so much for watching the Yeti Den. I will see you all next time. Bye.